Alright gamers, well, yeah, this has been a long overdue game review, and, well, you probably remember from my Halloween Horror Fest marathon of 2020, I did a Let's Play video on the game Until Dawn, Rush of Blood, which is kind of a first-person rail shooting kind of thing, and it's not just any game, it's a VR game. So, yep, Astro Bot Rescue Mission. Yes, this is on the PlayStation 4 to be exact. I'm well aware that the PlayStation 5 also has a VR that just recently released. Well, that's going to have to wait for a while, and I don't really plan on getting one just yet because I'm still pretty hooked on this one. So, in the meantime, let's talk about this one before I get to the game review, the console itself, the design, and everything that's included. So, yeah, the basic thing, the headset. It goes on pretty snug, you know, has a head strap, earplugs for sound, and pretty much whatever you see on TV shows up on here. So yeah, there's a specific way you have to put this thing on. Not only that, it also comes with attachment pieces for the console that you have to hook up with wires and everything like that. The instructions are very helpful, as well as a motion sensor thing that goes either on the bottom or on top of your TV. Either way, it works. As well as two wireless controllers, which honestly look like light-up microphones. Yeah, or little miniature lightsabers, whatever the hell you would call them. Bottom line, these are the two main controllers that come with this thing. And, well, not every single game is compatible or requires these. There are some games, like this one that I'm about to get into, that, of course, only utilizes the basic PlayStation 4 controller. So, get to that in a little bit. But these things work as microphones. Yes, you could talk into these if you want a certain app to come up. Just say PlayStation, then the name of the game or app, and it'll bring it right up. As long as you speak clear enough, well, it works. Not only that, but for certain games, like ones that I'll probably review in the future, and of course the one that you saw in my Halloween Horror Fest marathon, these are the controllers that you probably saw me using. So, it works pretty well. You got the triggers in the bottom, some buttons on the top. It's pretty basic, and it works. They're motion controls. Pretty fun. You got other games like golf, a shooting game called Blood and Truth, which again I'll get to a little bit. But in the meantime, time to blast off into space with probably what I think, as I said, the best PlayStation VR game is Astro Bot Rescue Mission. So, let's go into space and rescue some bots, shall we? Alright, let's get this bad boy on. Get the PlayStation 4 controller all set, because after all, as I said, this game only utilizes this headset and this controller. Yeah, I gotta get the headphones in. And let's do it. So yes, as you start the game, you probably notice, as I said, this takes place in space because of the title, Astro Bot Rescue Mission, and that makes perfect sense right there. You play as this little Astro Bot guy, which is perfectly appropriate for the title, similar to something like out of Kirby, where he's cutesy, but don't underestimate him. He is a fighter and a true warrior to go out of his way and put himself in any danger just to rescue all his friends being held prisoner on these different planets. It's a basic overhead 3D platforming type of game. You jump, you can hover while holding the button in, collect coins that are scattered throughout, and take out enemies by attacking and even hovering over them. Because like I said, as cutesy as he looks, he does not mess around when it comes to rescuing his friends. And your main objective, aside from rescuing them, is to, well, complete the stage. Pretty basic, but obviously most of them which have bottomless pits you don't want to fall down in. And of course with enemies, as you can tell, instant death by touch bullshit. But even though it may seem a bit challenging, you thankfully do get checkpoints throughout each part of every level. So it makes it a fair challenge. And as soon as you reach the end of each stage, you slingshot yourself using the touchpad on the PS4 controller. Whee! Yeah, obviously try to make it through as many rings as you possibly can, leading to you and your rescued friends to do a little victory dance. How appropriate. Each stage is of course filled with all sorts of different types of puzzles, traps, and hazards and enemies, which I'll get into detail in a little bit. But getting back to the whole rescuing of your Astro Bot friends, there's about 8 in each level to be exact. So I guarantee most of you are probably not going to be able to get every single one in every single world. But if you do, then good for you, because it'll make it a lot easier and a lot more fun. Because they can be in some pretty obscure and most of the time hidden out of your sight locations. Yeah, it's a lot like collecting the green stars on Super Mario 3D World. And just like that game, you can go back and replay each level if you missed any of them. Because as you guessed, you do have to have a certain amount of these little guys collected to advance through certain parts of the game. That alone makes it half the fun right there. Each world consists of 5 different levels, and each one is named after a play-on word type of pun, which I do find pretty amusing. I mean, high-rise hijinks, there's grass, and there's office buildings that you have to climb over. Makes sense. Vertigo, which has construction beams, and whoa, yeah, I guess it makes sense there, considering I got my worst case of vertigo. Okay, yeah, I'll keep the puns to a minimum. But it's kind of hard to with these kind of names. Funky fungi, yeah, you're inside of a cave with a bunch of glowing fungi plants. Yeah, gotta let these mushrooms join the party. They are fungi, right? Alright, that's enough there. Cliffhanger, which some of you Stallone movie fans might be disappointed is not on snowy cliffs, instead is on desert cliffs. Almost looks like something out of the Coyote cartoon. Meep meep. And whoa, once again, I'm definitely getting my worst case of vertigo here, looking down. And this also brings me to the gadgets. Yes, in each world you're introduced to a different new gadget, which proved to be essential when making your way through all these levels with all the different tricks and traps and such. And most of them do make a return in later on stages, in later on worlds, but they're only given back to you at certain locations when needed. And in this world, as you notice, it's the hook shot. No, it's not like Legend of Zelda. You aim and shoot it at anything that has these ring things sticking out, like these enemy balloons for example, and even across some long gaps that you can't hover over. Yep, you could just walk over it like a tightrope, and even bounce up and down on it. Quite an acrobatic daredevil he is. You get the water gun, which helps make stuff grow, like when you're in the sky stage. Yep, fee fi fo fung. Gotta make that beanstalk grow. It's also useful to help move these spinning devices, as well as cool down anything that's hot or on fire, especially when trying to make your way through molten lava. Yep, just create a temporary walkway and it's perfectly safe to go through. For a short time, that is. You also get the ninja star, in which, like it sounds, you use these ninja daggers, and you throw them by, well, swiping at the touchscreen pad on the PlayStation 4 controller. In fact, all of the gadgets make use of the touchscreen pad, whether it's pressing or swiping. And with these, swiping obviously makes more sense. You use these to take down enemies, especially the tall towering bamboo ones, as well as help solve certain puzzle contraptions, help cut through ropes, spider webs, giant bamboo trees that are blocking your way, and even create makeshift platforms on certain spots where the walls are soft enough for these things to stick to. Then you get the pellet gun, which, like the name sounds, shoots out pellets, also useful for taking out enemies, especially at a long distance at a very high speed. But most importantly for target shooting, because it is required to take these things out in order to advance through certain parts of whatever levels have these. The last two gadgets each are only found on one stage. The flashlight is only found on the stage called Bots and Goblins, which makes perfect sense because it is a mostly dark stage. I mean, what else do you expect out of the name Bots and Goblins? Yeah, it's gonna have a spooky vibe to it, which I will admit is pretty cool. I mean, you go through a graveyard and a lot of dark rooms, so the flashlight helps so you can see where you're going, as well as reveal invisible platforms, which are there, but hey, being able to see them definitely helps a lot more, wouldn't you say? As well as its flash feature, which helps bust ghosts. That's right. Who are you gonna call? The Astro Bot. Because busting makes him feel good. And then finally, you get the laser, It's exactly what it sounds like. Works almost like the pellet gun, except, well, it shoots a laser out. And you get it at the final boss fight. Yep, at the end of each world, I have to mention, you face off against a different boss fight. First one is called the Tooth Fairy. Doesn't quite look like a tooth fairy. It looks like a giant robot gorilla with big teeth that you have to punch and then yank out using the hook shot. So I guess that makes some sort of sense there. Oof. Hope he's got a good dental plan because he's definitely going to need it for after this. Then a hot date. What, with this octopus that comes out of the lava? Yeah, for somebody who's played Mario Galaxy, I think I knew where you're coming from there, Sony. But then again, I've seen worse blatant rip-offs. And as you guess, the water cannon comes in handy right here. Yeah, gotta cool this octopus down on every flaming object that's placed in front of you. Including the flaming boulders that he throws at you, which are the key items to defeating him. Hose him down, and throw him. 3 times, that is. And then, just this one time, you get an upgrade for your water cannon, a water hose, to cool him down and finish him off for good. Third world is a little birdie. Yeah, it doesn't look so little to me. And with a little bit of patience and precision and waiting for him to get his beak stuck into the ground, 3 times to be exact, and each time you use the hook shot once again, but this time to tightrope over it to help knock each set of his goggles off, and then eventually the top of his head. Yeah, that's how you flip this bird off. Then you got the swinging sister, which is, a giant arachnic. A female one to be exact, which I guess makes sense to the name, with sunglasses on, and as I mentioned before with the ninja stars, with cutting up spider webs, well, that's the weapon you get here, and that's exactly what you do. Cut down the webs and beat the shit out of her. 3 times, obviously. No surprise there. The next one is called Catch of the Day. Yeah, not exactly a catch you want because it's a giant mechanical shark. And, well, too bad he could have needed a bigger boat because he destroys it right off the bat. Once again, this boss fight, like most of them, comes in 3 waves. Yeah, pretty literal right there. But yes, it's waves and waves of deadly squids, which you have to dodge, of course. It starts out easy, but as you guessed, it gets harder and harder as you go along. Especially when you get to the last wave. Oh boy, this is where the frustration comes in. And if you manage to make it all the way to the end, instead of a stick of dynamite, which is what you use on him in the first 2 waves, this time you have to feed it all of the gas canisters. And then, with your pellet gun, time to say, smile, you son of a bitch. But as you guessed, that's not the last of the boss fights. Nope. The final boss fight is the alien boss, and you probably recognize him from the game's intro, who kidnapped all the Astro Bots. So it's time to fight and finish him once and for all. With what weapon does he use on you? Well, what weapon doesn't he use on you? He uses every single freaking gadget that you got throughout this entire game against you. I shit you not. I mean, he uses the water gun, pellet gun to lob explosives into the arena, and even throw the ninja star daggers at you. Yeah, and they can be at any direction. These, in my opinion, were the trickiest to try to dodge, and that's all you can really do when he uses the weapons, is try to dodge everything. It isn't until he slams his PlayStation 4 controller onto the arena with his green hands, and that's where you have to do the damage to him right there. But he doesn't back down from a fight so easily because in comes his flaming boxing gloves. And might I add, yes, you do get your gadgets when you need them. And in this case, it's the water gun, which you have to cool down his flaming fists with, causing him to punch himself. Then the ninja star daggers to help break his club before he can whack you with it. Then the pellet gun, which helps you block any projectiles he throws at you. And as you guessed, it's only going to get harder and harder each round, until eventually you're able to finish him off with, as I mentioned, the laser. Yeah. Good enough to whoop this ET's ass? And there you go. You get the end credits, and, well, I did neglect to mention that there are also side challenges throughout each world in the game. And you get some of these unlocked by either beating the boss fights at the end of each world, or by finding these chameleons that are hidden throughout each level. Yeah, they're a lot tougher to find than the Astro Bot friends because they obviously don't make noise, so yeah, look it up online if you can't find them. That's why they're called chameleons, right? The challenges you get unlocked after beating the boss fights are, well, a rematch with that same boss fight, just without trying to lose as many of your lives as possible. It's almost like the Daredevil Comet challenges on Super Mario Galaxy. And the ones you get unlocked from the chameleons are basic platform challenges in which you either have to beat the level the quickest you can without dying because there's no checkpoints obviously in these, or on some of these try to get the high score on whatever objective you're trying to do that racks up points. Because when you reach the goal, if you manage to beat the high score, or beat the quickest time, or beat the boss fight rematch without losing one heart, you get 2 Astro Bot friends unlocked. But if you manage to make it without beating any of the high scores or fastest time or whatnot, you only get 1. Either way, it's still plenty helpful to get more of these little guys rescued along the way on your journey. So, in other words, there's more than plenty enough to keep you entertained and busy throughout this entire game. I scratched the surface on some of the level designs, but there's plenty more. You got underwater levels, which swimming can be a little tricky to try to get used to. The coolest part, in my opinion, is the fast-paced part where you're on the railing and you have to go side to side, dodge the obstacles while also trying to rescue your Astro Bot friends who could be on there. Almost kind of reminds me of being on the minecart stage on Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze a little bit. The Neon Carnival stage is cool. You got one up in the clouds that I swear resembles something out of like Greek mythology. And whoa, better watch that lightning when you're trying to hop from one cloud to the other. What, the store paying a visit? You got several parts where you get to ride this moving platform. One going over lava, one going underwater, and then one that resembles a magic carpet when you're up in the sky. Must be a whole new world here. And another thing that, yes, I've taken note of too, is that the game is not in a first-person perspective, which, to be honest, is not a bad thing at all, because they decided to make it a little more interesting, and instead have the player interact with certain environments. Some examples, like when you have to get through certain parts of certain levels, just headbutt, and there you go. Like this thing right here. Ooh, yeah, that would hurt if it was actually real. Or like this soccer ball being thrown at you. With the right aim and timing, you just have to headbutt it, and there you go. And yes, I do also note the seaweed that I'm wearing after coming out of the water. Not to mention, this isn't the only time you have to headbutt something back to an enemy. This first-person feature also comes into play with certain things that might distract or throw you off a little bit, but at the same time, it's a cool feature, like certain enemies or anything that makes it look like the glass is broken for a brief moment. Yikes, I hope it doesn't get in my eyes. Or some enemies that might throw stuff in your face to distract or even blind you for a brief moment. Piece of shit. But like I said, it's still a pretty cool feature. And with gameplay this fun, I can't say that I felt cheated at all with this not being in first-person perspective, because it is a total blast. The enemy selection is pretty basic and standard. I mean, you got the easy ones you can take out by simply melee attacking them, or for the most part, you're better off just hovering over them, which can also take them out easily too. Because then you get ones that you can't obviously hit, otherwise it's instant death when touching, like ones that have spikes that come out, electric ones, and a bunch of others. So, as expected, the game is going to get tougher, and the enemy selection is going to vary a lot more, and be a bit more tougher to take out. But otherwise, I ain't got much to say. The gameplay is a lot of fun, the level designs are great with a lot of variety, lots of extras, the boss fights are fun, as I mentioned before, and the music sounds fantastic. I mean, it's such a great game that it ended up getting a sequel on the PlayStation 5, which we'll have to wait for another time. But yes, The bottom line, if you have a PlayStation VR and you're not sure which game to have in your collection, consider this one. It may not be, as I said, in the first-person perspective, but that doesn't stop it from being a really fun and awesome time. And for 20 bucks, I'm not disappointed at all. The music sounds great, it plays great. I guess you can say it is out of this world, because it is well deserving of a rockin' 2 remote to Wii Motion Pluses up. Trust me, it is that awesome. So, until next time, happy gaming.